So another question or thought process I can hear listeners going through is, wouldn't it be better to just leave this private? What they don't know can't hurt them. Isn't the important thing that I change my behavior and that things get better moving forward? The questions of why. Why go through all this? Because it's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. So why is a full disclosure such an important piece to recovery and restoring relationship in a marriage? They're looking at each other.
Yeah. Do you want to start with the addict, or do you want to start with the betrayed spouse?
Let's start with the betrayed spouse.
Okay. Well, for the betrayed spouse, again, it's that knowledge of the whole story. Mm-hmm. She's been living in a sense of unrest, not knowing the truth, not knowing what's going on. She can't continue. She needs the respect of knowing what she's dealing with. I say she because usually I'm working with the female. It's a higher percentage, but it can go either way. Yeah. So that betrayed spouse does need the respect of knowing what they're dealing with so that they can make their decisions for their life.
Yeah, it seems like if we give into that thought process that says what they don't know can't hurt them, essentially I am requiring or asking someone else to live in a false reality that they never agreed to or that they don't have any choice in. That the full disclosure for that betrayed spouse is giving them the dignity of knowing the truth, knowing the full story, so that they can make appropriate decisions, so that they can move forward on reality, not on fantasy.
And it's not a guessing game. Because I feel like at that point, too, you're leaving it open to speculation. Like, well, I don't really know the whole picture. So did my spouse do this or that? And I think that there's almost this fear, too, to ask because you don't want the answers. That fear also goes away because you have the answers.
Yeah. It's all in the light. Mm-hmm. There's no more darkness.
Yeah, that's good.
More times than not, we see partial disclosure prior to the full disclosure. Mm-hmm. And so that gets the wheels turning often with the betrayed spouse.
Right.
She's wondering, well, what else happened? What about this? And she begins to question their history. Mm-hmm. And so in order to get things onto the table, and with that full understanding of where the couple is and how they got there, the full disclosure is required.
So another kind of clarifying question, we talk about the two difference, because you're talking about really a limited disclosure. What we see is there's the staggered disclosure that happens over time. What's the difference between a full and a staggered disclosure?
A staggered disclosure actually is a re-traumatization of the betrayed spouse.
Okay.
She's hearing parts of the story, and oftentimes it's devastating each time she hears a part of that story. The full disclosure, there's prep work on the front end, during the full disclosure, and afterwards that provides both parties support. So the shock factor actually is much, much less when she hears the entire story as opposed to parts and pieces.
That's counterintuitive.
It is.
A little bit.
It absolutely is.
It is. It is. But I always think of ripping off the Band-Aid. It really hurts when you start pulling off that Band-Aid a little at a time, and that pain, keeps going.
Right.
If you rip it off, it hurts. It hurts a lot. But now you have the opportunity to heal and to recover.
Yeah, the metaphor we were given in our recovery journey, and I say this as someone who practiced staggered disclosure, not intentionally, but just thinking that's what you do. You confess, and so when something new would happen, confess a little more without ever really putting all the pieces together or facing it fully. And I wonder if for a lot of men and women, they think that is being honest, to just kind of share a little bit as much as they feel like they need to share to get the weight off their chest. And it feels like I'm being honest, but I'm never really sharing the full story. And the metaphor we were given was for my wife, the feeling of falling into a bottomless pit, that every time she would hear more, it'd just be this sense of what else don't I know? What else is there? Yep. And the question for her of, will this ever stop? Will there ever be an end to this? And that unknowing, that uncertainty, I think, is what really drove a wedge between us and made her feel like, can I even stay in this relationship? So what the full disclosure did in that analogy was created a firm foundation, a bottom, and even if it was a deep pit, and for every person, how deep the pit goes might be a little different based on how long it's been and how much activity, but it actually created a bottom where both spouses could put their feet on firm footing and know, this is our truth. This is where we are. We might not like it, but at least we know where we are, and we can start climbing and building back up. And that wasn't possible until that full story had been presented by me to my wife. And so maybe that analogy would be helpful to someone else to just think about, why do this if it is very difficult and daunting.
Right. And it's important to know that even if you do this process, and we'll get into what it looks like, even if you do this perfectly, like textbook, it's still going to be really painful. And it's not going to be, it's going to feel like it gets way worse before it gets better. But I think what I'm hearing you guys say, and what we've experienced just through doing, group work and with counseling, is that it's a necessary and very needed part if health and recovery is in your future.
It absolutely is. It's often the most challenging and difficult part of the process of recovery and restoration, but it's also the most needed. And we talk to couples after they've been through the Pure Desire program, and they often say that was the most difficult, but also the most helpful. Not uncommon to hear that.
Yeah.